fair that these institutions that are responsible for the crisis start paying their fair share. So that's not a tax on wealth, it's not a tax on individuals, it's a tax on the big industrial banking institutions that are responsible for the crisis. And then also we can nationalise the Bank of England. Now, technically, the Bank of England is a public institution, but it is definitely not used for national purposes. It is currently only used to serve private and very limited interests. We need to use the credit-creating power of the Bank of England, which was used to bail out the banks, to start bailing out people.
Thank you, Stuart, for being with us. And go to Stuart's fundraiser and help him raise the last half so he can get a flyer in everybody's mailbox and take advantage of this unparalleled opportunity. Talk to you next week, Stuart. Thank you very much.
If the IRS has garnished your paycheck or seized money from your bank account, you need to get professional tax help now. Fast action is required to put a halt to these aggressive IRS collection tactics. You can count on the knowledgeable team of tax professionals at Wall & Associates. With over 30 years of experience, Wall & Associates has settled the tax problems of thousands of taxpayers for a small fraction of what they owed. For a free face-to-face consultation, call 1-800-425-4610 to put a wall between you and the IRS. 1-800-425-4610 or look for us on the web at wallandassociates.net. We solve tax problems. If you hire Wall & Associates today, you'll never have to talk to the IRS again. To stop the levies and seizures today, take action now. Call Wall & Associates at 1-800-425-4610. Wall & Associates. 1-800-425-4610. Based on actual cases, results may vary, not a solicitation for legal services.
Did you know that drinking pure, high alkaline water is one of the most important factors in maintaining high energy and vibrant health? Most experts agree that the water you drink should be at a pH level of 8 or higher. AlkaVision Plasma pH Drops, available only at alkavision.com, combine a unique formula of only the most alkaline minerals. AlkaVision Plasma pH Drops alkalize your water, ridding the body of harmful toxins, and helps you regain health and energy. Alkalizing your water by simply adding 10 drops of AlkaVision Plasma pH Drops helps the body rid itself of acidic waste, increases oxygen content, and raises the pH of your body to healthy levels. And bacteria and viruses cannot survive in an alkaline high pH environment. Order your bottle of AlkaVision Plasma pH Drops for only $29.95 at alkavision.com. That's ALKAvision.com. Or call 269-409-1776. 269-409-1776. Alkalize your body. Supercharge your health at alkavision.com today.
Hi, John Hubner from Midas Resources. Are you tired of watching your hard-earned assets dwindle away? As government spending is out of hand and the Federal Reserve is creating in excess of $20 billion a week, are you tired of stockbrokers gambling away your hard-earned money? Is this market a setup for a crash greater than 1987? Too many of today's policies resemble those that led to the collapse of 1929. This is John Hubner, and that was me in 2007. And we all know what happened when the subprime credit bubble burst. By March 2009, the dollar lost 50% of its value. The entire U.S. banking system was on the verge of collapsing. Like all financial problems of the past, is history about to repeat itself? Call me, John Hubner, at 1-800-686-2237, extension 129, before it's too late to protect yourself. Will the oncoming catastrophe take all private IRAs, 401ks with it? There is a way to protect your hard-earned assets. Call me, John Hubner, at 1-800-686-2237, extension 129.
So we decided to upgrade the look of our home.
You know, improve the curb appeal.
We decided to add the look of stone to the exterior.
We really like the stacked stone look.
Yeah, but when I checked into the price, it was ridiculous. No way could we afford it.
Then a friend told me about Genstone. Genstone.
Genstone comes in lightweight panels made of polyurethane. They've actually engineered the hassle out of installation. No mortar, no mesh. It was easy. Even I could do it.
We just screwed the panels to the wall and it looks like stone. stone. I mean, it really looks like stone.
Yeah, from the box to the wall in minutes.
We love the look of our home now.
And Genstone is durable, comes with a 25-year warranty, and offers additional R value for insulation.
If you want the look of stone at a price you can afford, call Genstone
At 855-955-STONE.
Trust me, you'll save money.
and you'll love the look.
855-955-STONE. That's 855-955-7866.
We are the premier independent talk radio network, the Genesis Communications Network, GC.
Welcome back to the last segment of World Crisis Radio. We are now joined by legal consultant to the Tax Wall Street Party to give us professional opinion on what happened at the trial for Reverend Pinckney on Tuesday, April 14th, and especially to tell us where we go from here. Jeff, are you with us?
Yes, I'm here, Daniela.
Hi, Jeffrey. So let's give a wrap up of what we think happened on the 14th. I know we have limited details, and then let's talk about where we go from here.
Okay. Well, the 14th was the very last post-trial hearing that took place related to Reverend Pinckney's trial phase of his criminal trial. He was convicted, as you know, back in December, and gosh, it's taken quite a long time to wrap up the post-trial phase of these proceedings. And all three of the major arguments in the post-trial phase made by Reverend Pinckney and his lawyers have now been shot down by the trial court. So the case is ripe, finally, to go to the Court of Appeals, where we are very hopeful that at least one, if not all three of the major arguments made to get this new trial or to get the verdict thrown out, that at least one of those is going to actually be granted. We're very confident because of the rather egregious facts involved in this whole matter. Now, specifically, what happened last Tuesday related to juror Gail Freeling. Now, we know about Gail Freeling. The listeners to this show know that Reverend Pinckney was challenging Gail Freeling and that she was not an unbiased juror, which we're all entitled to under the U.S. Constitution and certainly under the Michigan Constitution as well. Reverend Pinckney was entitled to an unbiased jury. And your hard work, Daniela, and Reverend Pinckney's hard work and his supporters, we were able to drum up some facts which tended to show juror Freeling was prowling around there in Berrien County with Sharon Tyler, the county clerk, who was obviously one of the important witnesses in the trial. My understanding from speaking with people who were there was that it was supposed to be an evidentiary hearing, but that not much evidence, if any, was actually heard by the judge. Mm-hmm. So we're going to flesh all that out in the appeal. If it was another kangaroo court-style proceeding, as the last hearings were, then that could just be more rounds of ammunition when it comes to convincing this appellate court that these proceedings should have never been brought in the first place. Well, the last time
Jeffrey, I don't mean to interrupt. I have one quick question. A lot of listeners have this question. Wasn't it the Michigan State Court of Appeals that determined this could only be tried as a misdemeanor? And is that the same court we're going to end up in? I think so.
Yes. There are different districts. Mm-hmm. And I am unsure at the time of this interview if it's the same district.
Okay.
However, what I am sure of at this time is that case, which occurred with another defendant in another Michigan county, there was a case with very similar facts. And I spoke about this the last time I was on when I was talking about the rule of lenity. Mm. And what the Michigan Court of Appeals concluded with this other case just a few months ago, actually, was that this particular felony statute under which Reverend Pinckney was tried, that statute was vague enough to be confused with a misdemeanor statute. And the law is very clear. This is Anglo-Saxon common law going back centuries, actually. It's one of the foundations of the criminal justice system, this rule of lenity, that if conduct is prohibited by a misdemeanor statute, and the same conduct can also be interpreted to be prohibited by a felony statute, then you cannot charge the defendant with a felony. You have to charge him with a misdemeanor because he was under notice that the conduct was, in fact, a misdemeanor, not a felony. So if the conduct can be interpreted to fall into a category as a misdemeanor, he has to be tried as a misdemeanor. And that is exactly what the Michigan Court of Appeals ruled in relation to this other county with this other defendant who was also trying to lead a recall petition. So I was going to point out, though, and it's important to point out, that the case is so new that even if it was in the same district, it's not binding yet because, believe it or not, the Michigan Attorney General has chosen to appeal to the Michigan Supreme Court because they didn't like the ruling in the other case that you can only charge them with a misdemeanor. So because that case has not become final yet and it's being appealed, it couldn't be binding on the Berrien County Court. So essentially, you had very strong, persuasive case law that the Berrien County Judge Schrock, knew about, and the Berrien County Prosecutor Sepik knew about, but chose to ignore it, even though it was directly on point, and the only case that is directly on point related to the very same statutes. So it just, from an outside observer here in Houston, it just looks to me like par for the course with this prosecution. It looks like a selective prosecution to begin with. I genuinely believe, from observing the motions and talking to many of the people involved, that this case would have never been brought against anyone but Reverend Edward Pinckney. He is got a long history of fighting for the great majority population of Benton Harbor. I'd like to point out, too, Benton Harbor, Larry Pinckney, Reverend Pinckney's spokesperson, he keeps calling it Benton Harbor, Mississippi. And, I think that's accurate in a lot of ways, especially when you look at the demographics there in Benton Harbor. It's got one of the highest high school dropout rates. It's got one of the highest, it's got one of the lowest rates of college graduates. It's got one of the lowest mean incomes. And Reverend Pinckney has fought for decades in that town to raise people up, to get the government to be on the people's side. And as we know in that company town, he's made a lot of enemies. And it should never be the case that your politics affects whether or not you're going to be charged with a crime. But unfortunately, the circumstances, as I have observed them, make that conclusion unmistakable in this particular case.
What's amazing to me, Jeffrey, is you get an area like that and then people say, oh, it's just these lazy African Americans that are in a ghetto. But that area is the shell of beautiful Victorian houses and craftsman houses. Yeah. And when there was employment in that area, you had the pictures of Reverend Pinckney's parents. They're walking around in top hats. And the mother stayed at home and raised the kids, and the father was working at the Whirlpool plant making, a wage that was enough to support a family of 4, and in beautiful houses. So that area is just a shell of houses. So this idea that it's just, there's some collective guilt or it's a certain demographic that's lazy. It's all economic. It's just devastating.
Yes, to point to something like that, to just generalize and say, well, they're lazy. That's obviously, incredibly short-sighted, and it is a very lazy analysis.
Yes.
And if we're going to dig a little deeper into what's going on in Benton Harbor, I think we have to look at